In the heart of the Galactic Empire, a meeting was taking place among the highest leaders of the empire. The room was vast, filled with large windows that gave a view of the endless stars outside. The empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, each one bending to their will. There was no doubt in their minds that they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. But today, something was different. A small planet called Earth had caught their attention. The humans living there had recently made a surprising leap in technology. They had discovered faster than light travel, and they had sent a fleet of ships to the edges of the galaxy. To the leaders of the empire, this was laughable. Earth, a planet filled with primitive creatures, was no match for their advanced technology. Sitting at the head of the table was Grand Emperor Talius, his sharp eyes scanning the counselors around him. His fingers tapped slowly on the surface of the table as he spoke. "Humans," he said with a cold smile, "a species that has only just begun to leave their planet. They have no idea what they are stepping into." His words were met with laughter from the other leaders. "We've crushed civilizations far older than theirs," one of the counselors scoffed. "This will be no different." Another leader, Commander Vrel, leaned forward. "I suggest we show them their place. A swift invasion will teach them a lesson they won't forget." The room buzzed with agreement, and plans were quickly formed to send a fleet to Earth. They would demonstrate the Empire's power, destroy the human ships, and make sure that no one would ever dare challenge their rule again. But even as the Empire made its plans, the humans were not standing idle. On Earth, Captain James Blackwell of the human fleet was preparing for the unexpected. He knew the Empire's reputation for strength, but he also understood one thing: humans never gave up. They had survived impossible odds before, and now they were about to prove it again. The human fleet wasn't as large as the Empire's, but it was swift and cunning. Each ship was equipped with advanced technology, and the crew, led by Blackwell, was ready to fight with everything they had. Their mission was clear: defend their home planet at all costs. As the two forces prepared to meet, neither side fully understood what was about to unfold. The Galactic Empire, overconfident in its power, underestimated humanity's spirit. The humans, though outmatched in size, were about to show the Empire that they were not just a minor threat. The fleet of the Galactic Empire surged through space, ready for the battle that would confirm their superiority. But little did they know, the humans had already begun to make their first move. The story of how humanity would rise to the challenge, against all odds, was about to begin. The galaxy had never seen a battle like the one unfolding between the Galactic Empire and humanity. In the aftermath of the first clash, the Empire's leaders were in shock. A single human ship, the Defiance, had managed to destroy one of their most powerful cruisers. It was unheard of. No one had ever thought humans were capable of such a thing. The high-ranking officers of the Empire gathered in a massive war room, their faces tense as they analyzed the data from the battle. The room was dimly lit, with huge holographic displays showing the battlefield. The Empire's fleet had suffered losses, but it wasn't just the physical damage that worried them. It was the unexpected nature of the humans' tactics. Grand Emperor Talius stood at the front, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the hologram. His sharp, calculating eyes scanned the readouts, his mind racing. How had this happened? They had been certain that humanity, with its relatively primitive technology, would be an easy target, but the humans had proved them wrong in the most shocking way possible. "The data doesn't lie," said Commander Vrel, his voice low and serious. "The human ship used a strategy we didn't expect. They didn't just attack. They attacked where we were weakest. It's as if they know how to outthink us." Talius turned to face Vrel. "Outthink us?" His voice was cold, but there was a hint of concern beneath it. "We are the Empire. We have crushed civilizations that were far older than this primitive race. How could they?" He trailed off, his words filled with disbelief. How could something so unexpected happen? How could humans, with all their flaws and weaknesses, stand against an empire so powerful? "Their tactics are unpredictable," Vrel continued. They didn't fight the way we expected them to. They don't seem to follow any of the patterns we know. They just keep adapting, changing their strategies in the middle of battle. It's almost as if they are learning from us. Talius clenched his fists. We cannot allow this. A few victories do not change the fact that we have more ships, more firepower, and more resources. We will crush them. But despite his confidence, the Emperor's mind was troubled. Every victory that humanity claimed seemed to defy logic, and with each victory, the humans grew bolder, more determined. Their ship, the Defiance, had become a symbol of defiance itself, a ship that showed the Empire just how dangerous humans could be. Across the galaxy, Captain James Blackwell stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as the latest battle reports came in. The humans had made another leap. They had outsmarted the Empire again, striking deep into their supply lines and cutting off critical resources. But Blackwell knew the battle was far from won. He could feel the pressure mounting. The Empire would retaliate with even more force, but he had something the Empire didn't: humanity's unshakable will to survive. For the first time in centuries, the Empire was facing an enemy it couldn't control or predict. Blackwell knew the coming days would be even harder, but he wasn't afraid. The fight had only just begun. The Empire was starting to understand what they were up against, but it was too late. The first seeds of fear had been planted, and that fear would grow. Humanity had shown that they could fight back. Now, the galaxy would learn the true cost of challenging humanity. The Empire's greatest mistake had only just begun to unfold, and it would not be easily forgotten. The battle for survival was far from over, but for the first time in the war, it seemed like humanity was gaining ground. The destruction of the Empire's supply convoy had been a significant blow to their forces. The Empire's reinforcements had been delayed, and the human fleet had used the opportunity to strike at key Imperial positions. Now, the Galactic Empire was on the defensive for the first time since the war began. Captain James Blackwell stood in the command center of the Defiance, watching the tactical screen intently. The data coming in was positive. Human forces had scored several small victories across the galaxy. Their attacks on Imperial outposts had weakened the Empire's hold on some of its most important systems, but the fight was far from won. The Empire still had the upper hand in terms of resources and firepower. They were powerful, but humanity was proving to be a more formidable enemy than anyone could have predicted. "We've made progress," Blackwell said, looking around at his crew. "But the Empire isn't going to give up easily. They'll regroup and come at us harder than ever." Lieutenant Nora nodded, her face serious. "They're going to throw everything they have at us. We need to be ready." Blackwell clenched his jaw. "We will be. The Empire has learned that they can't predict us. They'll think they know what we're going to do next, but they're wrong. That's our advantage." The human fleet, now emboldened by their victories, began to take the fight deeper into the heart of the Empire. With each strike, they weakened the Empire's grip on several key systems. It wasn't just their ability to fight that was turning the tide. It was their creativity. Humans used every resource at their disposal to outwit the Empire. They used terrain, space debris, and even decoys to create confusion among the Empire's forces. Meanwhile, Grand Emperor Talius sat in his war room, his fists clenched in frustration. The humans' unexpected success had shaken the Empire to its core. Despite the Empire's overwhelming power, the humans were still fighting, still pushing back. The realization that they were losing ground was unacceptable. The once invincible Empire was now struggling to maintain its hold. "We cannot afford to lose any more ground," Talius said, his voice low and filled with fury. "Our resources are being stretched too thin. We must put an end to this human uprising once and for all." Commander Vrel spoke up. "We should call in our reserve fleets from the outer systems. They will give us the reinforcements we need to crush them." Talius nodded slowly. "Yes, but this time, we will do things differently. The humans have shown us they can think on their feet. We need to adapt our strategy. No more underestimating them. As the Empire scrambled to regroup and deploy its reserve fleets, Blackwell and his crew were already planning their next move. They knew that the Empire would come at them with everything they had. It was only a matter of time before they faced an overwhelming assault. But the humans were no longer the underdogs. They had earned the respect of the galaxy, and the Empire was beginning to see them as a true threat. "We've turned the tide, but the war is far from over," Blackwell said to his crew, his voice steady but filled with determination. "We've shown them what humanity can do when pushed to the brink. And now we're going to show them what happens when you make humanity your enemy." The battle for the galaxy was no longer just about survival. It was about victory. And humanity wasn't going to back down. The Empire would soon learn that their greatest mistake had been underestimating the power of the human spirit. The war between the Galactic Empire and humanity had reached a dangerous turning point. After countless battles, the humans had proved time and again that they were a force to be reckoned with. But despite their tenacity, they were still facing an uphill battle. The Empire's fleet was vast, its resources almost endless. Yet the humans fought on, determined to protect their home planet. Captain James Blackwell stood on the bridge of the Defiance, his eyes fixed on the tactical screen. The human fleet had suffered losses, but they had also caused significant damage to the Empire's war machine. In the past few days, the humans had managed to destroy 2 Empire battleships and cripple several others. But the cost was high, and Blackwell knew that another defeat could be the end for them. "We can't keep this up forever," Lieutenant Nora said, her voice filled with concern. "The Empire is relentless. They'll keep coming, no matter what." "I know," Blackwell replied quietly. He looked around at his crew, all of them exhausted but still focused. "But we have one advantage the Empire doesn't. We can adapt. We can think outside the box. They rely on their power, their numbers. But we rely on something far more dangerous." "What's that, sir?" asked Lieutenant Nora, her curiosity piqued. "We rely on our creativity," Blackwell said, a determined glint in his eyes. "We don't play by their rules. And that's how we win." Just then, the communications officer, Ensign Kira, called out from her station. "Captain, we've intercepted a message from one of their supply convoys. They're bringing in reinforcements from the Imperial base on Zilgar. If we take out the convoy, we can delay their reinforcements long enough to strike at their weak points." Blackwell's mind raced as he processed the information. The Empire's forces were stretched thin, and this could be their opportunity to land a critical blow. But the convoy was heavily guarded, and any mistake could result in a devastating counterattack. The risks were high, but the reward could be even greater. "Prepare the fleet," Blackwell ordered. "We're going after that convoy. We hit them fast and hard, and we don't give them a chance to respond." The human fleet launched into action, moving quickly and quietly toward the convoy's location. The Empire's forces were caught off guard by the sudden assault. Human ships, moving with the precision and speed that had become their trademark, struck the convoy with a series of well-coordinated attacks. Explosions erupted across the convoy as the humans disabled several transport ships and crippled the Empire's escort vessels. The Empire's response was swift, but it was too late. The humans had already done the damage. Blackwell watched the battle unfold, his heart pounding as the Defiance led the charge, weaving through the wreckage and striking at the heart of the convoy. "We've done it," shouted Lieutenant Nora, her voice filled with excitement. "They didn't see us coming." Blackwell allowed himself a brief smile, but his thoughts were already on the next step. The convoy's destruction had delayed the Empire's reinforcements, but the battle was far from over. The Empire would retaliate, and the humans needed to be ready. "This is just the beginning," Blackwell said. "We've turned the tide today, but we still have a long way to go. The Empire will try to crush us, but they'll never break us. We're humans, and we fight until the very end." As the human fleet withdrew to regroup, the Empire was left reeling from the unexpected loss. The turning point had come, and the Galactic Empire would soon learn that underestimating humanity had been their greatest mistake. The war was changing. For the first time since the conflict began, humanity was gaining ground, and the Galactic Empire was starting to feel the pressure. The destruction of their convoy had dealt a severe blow to their resources, and their once unstoppable fleet was now struggling to maintain control. The humans, though outnumbered and outgunned, had fought with such unexpected cunning that the Empire's leadership was beginning to question their own superiority. Captain James Blackwell stood at the command center of the Defiance, watching the latest reports come in. The human fleet, once small and disorganized, was now growing stronger with each victory. The attacks on Imperial supply lines, the sabotage of their communications, and the destruction of several key military bases had all taken a toll on the Empire's war effort. The humans were relentless, and they had found ways to outsmart the Empire at every turn. "Captain," Lieutenant Nora said, her voice urgent, "the Empire's fleet is regrouping. They're sending a massive force from the outer systems to crush us once and for all." Blackwell nodded grimly. He had expected this. The Empire had to respond. The question was, could the human fleet stand against such overwhelming odds? Their numbers were still small compared to the Empire, and the risk of losing everything in one massive battle was high. "Prepare the fleet," Blackwell ordered. "We'll need to be ready for whatever they throw at us. But we don't fight like they do. We use our strength in numbers and surprise. The Empire is too predictable. We've shown them that we can't be beaten in the same way twice. It's time to turn the tables." The human fleet was smaller, but it had one advantage: the humans knew how to fight dirty. They weren't bound by tradition or rules of engagement. They used every trick in the book to outwit the Empire. And now, they had a new strategy: guerrilla warfare. Instead of head-on battles, the humans began striking at the Empire's weakest points. Systems they thought were safe, bases that were left unguarded, and supply lines they believed were secure. As the Empire's forces advanced, Blackwell's ships launched hit-and-run attacks. The Empire's fleet was massive and powerful, but it was also slow and predictable. The human ships, agile and fast, darted in and out of the enemy lines, leaving destruction in their wake. The Empire's superior firepower wasn't enough to overcome the humans' creativity and adaptability. "Captain, the Empire is retreating," Lieutenant Nora said, her voice filled with surprise. "We've done it. We've pushed them back." Blackwell looked at the tactical display in front of him. The Empire's fleet was in disarray, their retreating ships leaving behind a trail of wreckage. The humans had done the impossible. They had forced the Empire to fall back, at least for now. "But we can't stop here," Blackwell said, his voice steady despite the excitement in the room. "We've taken one step, but the Empire will return. They'll regroup and come back stronger. We need to keep the pressure on them, and we need to hit them where it hurts." The human fleet didn't celebrate. There was no time for rest. This was only a temporary victory, a small but significant step towards something bigger. Blackwell knew that the Empire would learn from their mistakes and come after humanity with even more fury. But now, the humans had hope. They had proven that even against the greatest military force in the galaxy, they could stand tall. The tide of war had shifted, and humanity's greatest strength, their unyielding will to survive, was beginning to show the Empire that their biggest mistake had been challenging them in the first place. The stars shone brightly as the two fleets, one from the Galactic Empire and the other from Earth, hurtled toward each other through the vastness of space. The Empire's fleet was enormous, a collection of warships and battle cruisers equipped with powerful weapons. Their mission was clear: wipe out the human threat once and for all. On the other side, Captain James Blackwell stood at the command console aboard the Defiance, one of the most advanced ships in the human fleet. He watched the Empire's fleet approach on the main screen. His crew, a mix of veterans and rookies, moved with calm determination. Despite the size and strength of the enemy fleet, Blackwell knew they had one advantage. They were human, and that meant they had a creative, unpredictable way of fighting. "Captain, they're coming in fast." Lieutenant Nora, Blackwell's second-in-command, reported, her eyes glued to the tactical screen. "They're not slowing down. They want to end this quickly." "We won't make it easy for them," Blackwell replied, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "Get ready to engage. We'll show them the strength of humanity." Blackwell knew that this wasn't going to be an easy battle. The Empire's ships were far more powerful, but humans had something that the Empire didn't. They had heart. They weren't going to surrender without a fight, and they had learned from every war and every conflict. They understood strategy, surprise, and determination. It wasn't just about firepower. It was about doing the unexpected. As the enemy fleet drew closer, Blackwell issued orders. "All ships, break formation. Prepare for evasive maneuvers." His voice was calm, but everyone aboard the Defiance knew what was at stake. The human ships scattered in all directions, using their smaller, more agile designs to their advantage. They weaved in and out of the larger Empire ships, avoiding blasts and taking shots when they could. The Empire, surprised by the sudden unpredictability of the human fleet, struggled to react quickly. The first clash was intense. Energy blasts lit up the dark void of space as both fleets exchanged fire. The Empire's ships were massive, their weapons powerful enough to wipe out entire human vessels with a single shot. Yet, time and time again, the human ships dodged, using their speed and maneuverability to outsmart the Empire's larger, less agile warships. Then, something happened that no one expected. The Defiance made a move that left the Empire stunned. The human ship charged straight toward one of the Empire's massive battle cruisers, as if to crash directly into it. The Empire's commander watched in disbelief, thinking it was a desperate move, a last-ditch effort to take down a single ship. But just as the Empire cruiser prepared to fire, the Defiance suddenly swerved, narrowly avoiding the blast. In the same instant, Blackwell ordered a precise strike on the cruiser's weak spot, the engine bay. A well-placed missile struck the cruiser's core, causing a massive explosion. The explosion sent shockwaves through space. The Empire ship, much larger and more heavily armored, had been taken out by a single human vessel. The crew of the Defiance cheered, but Blackwell knew they couldn't celebrate yet. This was just the beginning. The Empire's fleet was stunned. How could such a small, primitive force defeat one of their strongest warships? The leaders of the Galactic Empire watched from their command centers, realizing that humanity was not the weak target they had assumed. The Empire's greatest mistake had just begun to unfold. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, the Galactic Empire understood. Humanity wasn't to be underestimated. The Galactic Empire's leaders sat in silence, the weight of their recent defeat heavy in the air. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The first battle had left the Empire stunned, and each day after that brought more surprises. The humans weren't retreating. They weren't backing down. They were fighting back harder, smarter, and with more heart than the Empire had ever expected. Grand Emperor Talius paced back and forth in his private chamber, his mind consumed by the thought of humanity's bold resistance. "We have let them grow too bold," he muttered under his breath, frustration seeping into his voice. "It is time we show them the true power of the Empire." Commander Vrel entered the room, holding a data pad with updated intelligence. "The humans have disrupted our supply lines again, Your Excellency," he reported. "They've launched another surprise attack, this time against one of our refueling stations. We are losing valuable resources, and our ships are becoming less effective." Talius slammed his fist on the table, his anger rising. "How long are we going to let this continue? We cannot let these insignificant creatures ruin everything we've built." His eyes narrowed as he looked out the window at the stars. "Prepare the fleet. This time, we will crush them completely. There will be no more mistakes. We will show the humans the consequences of defying the Empire." The Empire's response was swift and brutal. A massive invasion fleet was assembled, the largest the galaxy had ever seen. Hundreds of warships, each more powerful than the last, were sent toward Earth. The Empire's leaders believed that with their overwhelming numbers, they would finally break the human resistance. On Earth, Captain James Blackwell was preparing his fleet for the worst. The intelligence they had gathered from previous battles showed the Empire wasn't taking any more chances. Blackwell knew that the Empire would come at them with everything they had. The stakes were higher now, and the human fleet had to be ready for the fight of their lives. The humans had already proven themselves capable of outthinking the Empire's war machine. But this time, the battle would be different. They were outnumbered, and the Empire's fleet was far stronger. Yet Blackwell wasn't afraid. He had seen the courage in his crew, the determination that burned in their eyes. He knew they would fight until their last breath. As the Empire's invasion fleet approached, the Defiance and the rest of the human ships took up defensive positions around Earth. They didn't have the firepower to match the Empire, but they had something the Empire couldn't predict. They had the element of surprise. "We may not have the numbers, but we have something better," Blackwell said, addressing his crew. "We have each other, and we have our ingenuity. We will make them regret underestimating us." The human fleet engaged the Empire's forces in a battle that shook the galaxy. Despite being outgunned, humanity fought with everything they had. They used their speed and unpredictable tactics to their advantage, striking at the Empire's weak points and avoiding direct confrontations whenever possible. Every time the Empire thought they had the upper hand, the humans slipped away, disappearing into the chaos of the battle. In the heat of the fighting, the Defiant struck once again, targeting a critical point in the Empire's formation. The humans had learned from their previous encounters, and this time their attacks were more precise. The Empire's ships, once thought invincible, were beginning to show cracks. It wasn't just a battle anymore. It was a war of wills. The Empire had underestimated humanity's strength before, and now they were paying for it. Blackwell's crew fought like their lives depended on it, because they did. The battle raged on, but one thing was certain: the Galactic Empire's response was not enough to break the spirit of humanity. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. Humanity's victory over the Galactic Empire was more than just a victory on the battlefield. It was a turning point in the history of the galaxy. Captain James Blackwell stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the stars ahead as the crew quietly celebrated their hard-earned success. The Empire's flagship, the Eternity, was in ruins, its once mighty fleet scattered and retreating. The humans had done the impossible. Against all odds, they had taken down the Empire's most powerful warship and captured its emperor. Now, the Imperial forces were disorganized, their leadership in chaos. The humans had struck at the heart of the Empire, and the impact of that strike would be felt across the galaxy. "Captain, we've received a transmission from Earth," Lieutenant Nora said, her voice breaking through Blackwell's thoughts. "It's from the United Earth government. They're calling for a celebration. They want to honor you and the fleet." Blackwell gave a faint smile, but the weight of what lay ahead still hung heavily on him. "Tell them I'll be there, but there's still work to be done." The victory had been hard-won, but it was only the beginning. The Empire was still a powerful force, and its remnants were scattered across the galaxy. Humanity had to secure their hold on the systems they had just liberated, rebuild their forces, and establish new alliances. The loss of the Eternity and its emperor was a huge blow to the Empire, but Blackwell knew it wouldn't be long before they tried to strike back. As the human fleet began to regroup, Blackwell called a meeting with his senior officers. They gathered in the briefing room aboard the Defiance, a small but sturdy ship that had become the symbol of human resilience. Blackwell addressed the crew, who were all exhausted but filled with a sense of pride. "We've taken the first step," Blackwell said, his voice strong and steady. "But we have to remember that the Empire won't just roll over. We've hurt them, but they'll be back. The war isn't over, not yet." Commander Harris, one of Blackwell's closest allies, nodded. We've scattered their fleet, but there are still Imperial strongholds. They'll regroup and rebuild. We need to stay ready. We will, Blackwell assured him. But we can't just wait for them to come to us. We need to take the fight to them. We'll form new alliances, rally the systems that have suffered under the Empire, and ensure that we never let them get back to full strength. Lieutenant Norris spoke up next. The people of Earth are calling for peace. They're hoping the Empire will surrender. They want to rebuild and move on. Blackwell paused, considering her words. I want peace too. But we've seen how the Empire operates. We can't risk another rise of their power. We have to make sure the Empire is dismantled for good. The officers nodded in agreement. The next steps would be critical. They would need to continue their push against any remaining Imperial forces, but they would also need to heal the galaxy, rebuild alliances, and ensure that the people of Earth could live in peace without the shadow of the Empire looming over them. As the meeting ended, Blackwell stood at the window of the briefing room, looking out at the stars once more. Humanity had achieved the impossible. They had fought back against the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known, and they had won. But victory came with a cost. The galaxy was fractured, and it would take time to rebuild. The road ahead would be difficult, but Blackwell was certain of one thing. Humanity would never stop fighting for their future. The war was not over, but humanity had already shown the galaxy that they would no longer be a silent, powerless species. They were strong, and they would fight for their place in the galaxy, no matter what it took. The galaxy was changing. The Galactic Empire, once an unchallenged force that had ruled the stars, was in ruins. Its leader, Emperor Talius, had been captured, and its fleet was scattered. Humanity had faced the impossible and triumphed. But the victory had come at a cost. While Earth and the human fleet celebrated, Captain James Blackwell knew that the work of rebuilding had only just begun. The Defiance moved through the stars, a symbol of humanity's resilience. The crew was tired, but their spirits were high. They had accomplished what no one thought possible, and the galaxy had taken notice. Earth was no longer a quiet, isolated planet. Humanity had shown the universe that they would not be pushed around. They had made their mark, and no one would forget it. In the days following the Empire's defeat, there was a call for peace. Earth's leaders, hoping to end the war and rebuild, wanted to speak with the remaining Imperial factions. They hoped for a peaceful surrender, a chance to heal the wounds of the galaxy. But Blackwell knew that peace would not come easily. The human fleet continued to patrol the outer systems, ensuring that the remnants of the Empire couldn't regroup. Blackwell understood that the threat was far from over. The Empire's reach might have been broken, but it had powerful allies, and there were factions in the galaxy that would want revenge for the fall of their leader. Captain, we've received another transmission, Lieutenant Norris said, interrupting his thoughts. She turned toward him with a serious expression. It's from the Imperial holdouts on Norath. They're offering a truce. Blackwell didn't respond immediately. He had known this day would come. The remnants of the Empire were now seeking peace, but Blackwell didn't trust them. We can't let our guard down yet, he said, his voice firm. The truce may be a trap, or it could be a sign they're running out of options. Either way, we have to be prepared. The galaxy's future was still uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity's role in it had changed forever. No longer were they just a quiet, isolated planet in the vastness of space. The human fleet, led by the Defiance, had proven that even the greatest powers in the galaxy could be defeated by creativity, determination, and the will to fight. As the weeks passed, peace talks between the remaining Imperial factions and Earth's leaders took place. The Empire's hold on the galaxy had fractured, but it wasn't gone. There were still systems under Imperial control, still strongholds to be fought for. Blackwell knew that the fight for the future of the galaxy was not over, but humanity had earned the right to be heard. The message that Blackwell sent to the galaxy was simple. It wasn't one of conquest or domination. It was a message of warning and hope. To the Empire's remnants, and to all who stand against us, Blackwell began in the transmission, his voice clear and steady. We are human, and we do not fight for power or for glory. We fight to protect what's ours. You've seen what happens when you underestimate us. We will not bow to anyone. The war may be over for now, but know this. If you try to rise again, we will fight, and we will win. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. But there is another path. If you seek peace, humanity is willing to listen. We are not the enemy, but we will not stand idly by while others try to destroy what we've built. With that final message, Blackwell turned to face his crew, his expression resolute. The future of the galaxy was uncertain, but humanity had made its stand. The war was over, for now, but the lessons of the past would echo through the stars for generations to come. And as the stars continued to shine, one thing was clear. Humanity would never again be underestimated. The moment the door to the bridge of the eternity burst open, chaos erupted. Captain James Blackwell and his team of soldiers stormed inside, weapons drawn and hearts pounding. They had only one mission: capture or eliminate Grand Emperor Talius, the leader of the Galactic Empire, and bring down the heart of the Empire's power. The Imperial guards on the bridge reacted instantly, drawing their weapons and firing. But the humans, trained for the impossible, moved with precision, dodging and returning fire. In the midst of the chaos, Blackwell's eyes searched for Talius. The Emperor was standing at the far side of the bridge, surrounded by his most trusted advisors. Talius' eyes widened in shock as he saw the human intruders. He had never believed this day would come. The humans were supposed to be easy prey, a quick conquest for the might of the Empire. But now, they had breached the very heart of his command ship, and the consequences of this failure were unimaginable. You think you can defeat me? Talius sneered, raising his hand. I am the Emperor of the galaxy. You are nothing. But Blackwell wasn't intimidated. He stepped forward, his voice calm but resolute. You were wrong. We're not nothing. We're human. And that means we'll never give up. You may have the might of the galaxy behind you, but we have something stronger: determination. As the human soldiers cleared the room of Imperial guards, Blackwell's team moved quickly to disable the ship's communication systems. Within moments, the Eternity was cut off from the rest of the Empire's fleet. Without the ability to coordinate with other ships, the Empire's forces were left disorganized and vulnerable. Talius, now realizing the full scale of his mistake, attempted to flee to an escape pod. But before he could make it to the door, Blackwell stepped in front of him, blocking his path. Your reign ends here, Talius, Blackwell said, his voice steady. The Emperor looked at the human, his face a mixture of fury and disbelief. You think you've won. Even if you kill me, it won't matter. The Empire will crush you. It will never fall. Blackwell shook his head. The Empire is already falling. You just don't know it yet. With that, Blackwell's team secured Talius and took him to the holding cells. The Empire's once unified command was now in disarray, and its leader was captured. Blackwell and his crew quickly transmitted the news to the rest of the human fleet, who were already engaged in battle with the remaining Imperial forces. Without the coordination of Talius and the disruption of the Eternity systems, the Empire's fleet faltered. The human ships, though smaller and less powerful, fought with renewed confidence and strength. The Empire's ships, confused and leaderless, began to fall one by one. As the last of the Imperial warships were destroyed or forced to retreat, a wave of victory washed over the human fleet. The Empire, once the most powerful force in the galaxy, was now reeling. Humanity had done the impossible. They had defeated the invincible Empire. Captain Blackwell stood on the bridge of the Defiance, looking out at the aftermath of the battle. The stars outside were calm, almost peaceful, in stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. His crew had fought with everything they had, and they had won. We did it. Lieutenant Nora said, her voice filled with awe. Blackwell nodded slowly. We did. But the war's not over yet. This is just the beginning. We've proven that humanity will not be defeated. And the galaxy will remember this day. Humanity had not only survived, but they had shown the entire galaxy that they could overcome even the greatest odds. The Empire had underestimated them, and in doing so, they had made their greatest mistake. The battle was over, but the war for the future of the galaxy had just begun.